pornography for the first time? 8. So now, that 8-year-old boy has a completely thwarted perspective of who women are, what they're for, because to him, they're here for pleasure. Right? Okay? Now, if you start what love is, what sex is, the purpose of sex, and sex is powerful.
Yes.
Sex is a contract. There's a spiritual component to sex. It is so powerful. No child has the capacity. The brain is not even formed yet. They're thinking with one side of the brain. There's no frontal lobe. They can't handle sex. They can't. So then now we have 29 states in the United States, 29, that has now incorporated a curriculum called CSE, okay, funded by Planned Parenthood, that teaches sex ed to 10-year-olds.
And parents do not know
They
this.
don't even
Parents
know.
are not aware of
Are
what's
you
going on
kidding
in
me?
their schools.
Because they're not engaged.
They're not.
Because they trust that the government is going to take care of my kid.
You think you send your child to school, your teacher's there to protect your kid.
You're paying for your child to be destroyed is what's happening today. Okay.
You're not paying because it's your our public
well,
schools.
if it's public school, now, well, in college,
Your taxes.
in college you pay.
Yeah, but this is happening in our
No,
elementary. This is
10-year-olds sit up. Look, I've got the manuscript. I've got the book, right? It's in my home. When you go to chapter 7 and 8, and it asks the question of a 10-year-old boy, does anal sex hurt?
I've seen this, and I've told other
This
parents
boy-
they don't believe me.
This boy's never even thought of anal sex. Does anal sex hurt? This is how the evil one works. He plants a seed. Now he's gonna go look for anal sex. He Googles anal sex. What happens? Porn pops up. That guy is hooked in 45 seconds. Grooming children for sex trafficking in our school system. This is happening on Politicians Watch.
Yep.
He knows what he's talking about. So I mentioned his ministry. Well, his sister herself was trafficked for 6 years, and by the grace of God, she was rescued and she was healed. And in this ministry together, and it's amazing. So I encourage you to follow Jacob Boyen's ministries if you ever have a chance. He's done movies and documentaries, and he's on Glenn Beck a lot. He's on Fox. He does a lot of speaking about this issue. He's really doing a lot of work, a lot of good work. All right, so that's enough of comprehensive sex ed. I think we've had enough of that. So let's take a look at critical race theory, because that's all in the news right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to have exploded on the scenes of the George Floyd riots, right? It's like that's all we heard about. People have said that the riots were the catalyst, for this event, but I think they're just a symptom, because this has been simmering and percolating in our schools for a long time. It's been ruminating for a long time. But let's take a look at what it teaches at its very core. This is critical race theory broken down into a nutshell. It teaches that all people are separated by skin color, that all whites are oppressors, victimizers, and racists, that all non-whites are oppressed, victims, and unable to be racist, that all Western forms of government are systemically racist and designed to oppress non-whites, that America is fundamentally racist, and that whites must advocate for white abolition, for the destruction of themselves, and that it's really built on a mousetrap argument. Failure to admit that you're racist, especially if you're white, simply proves that you are one. I've witnessed this countless times in this discussion. So let's take a look at what this is kind of in action here. We can learn a lot what happened in Edina Public Schools. They kind of started doing this stuff back in 2013. They started a little book called A is for Activists with their elementary school kids. And this is one of the resources that they went through. Well, let's look at the rest of their alphabet here. They have C is for creative counter to corporate values. F is for feminist. T is for trans, of course. And X is for Malcolm, as in Malcolm X. So this is our kindergartners are learning this stuff from grade school. Then they did something called the Melanin Project. And this is where they had to outline their hands and then color them in according to the color of their hands all the time, all the whole while saying nobody's better than anybody else. But they were constantly portraying the white kids as villains, oppressors, and privileged. And then kids all over the metro are filling out these equity surveys. I know you can't see all the little stuff on here. But just, they're always doing these checklists of our kids, these equity audits, and you're privileged if you're comfortable with your gender, you're white, you're a man, you travel, your parents are heterosexual, they're still married, If you've been told your sexuality is a phase, never been told it's been a phase, just kinds of things. They're just cataloging this stuff on our kids. And then in April of this year, the Minnesota Federation of Teachers encouraged Minneapolis school staff to wear black on Mondays to show solidarity with Black Lives Matter and to fight against all forms of racial injustice. They wanted students of every ethnicity, and if you can see their bullet points, every ethnicity here except for white, kids to know that they were supported, that they mattered, they were important, they were loved and seen, and that they had their back. Now, I work with many police departments in my day job. I actually have a day job, and I can tell you that so many officers' children were calling home on those days in tears, just crying for their moms who can pick them up, because it's really hard to be an officer's child in the public school today. And then here's a real gem. It's called Beyond the Face of Race, Emo Cognitive Explorations of White Neurosis and Racial Cray-Cray. The author states that dealing with white people is at times so overwhelming, draining, and incomprehensible that it causes serious anguish for people of color. And then Carver County Schools, Bloomington, Richfield, and other major metro schools have hired a guy by the name of Dr. Muhammad Khalifa to conduct equity audits in their districts. And he claims that his audits are going to reduce the achievement and discipline gaps by reforming equitable practices in schools. Well, one of the things he's especially concerned with ferreting out is white Christian privilege, because he tells the district that Islamophobia is one of the most widespread, growing, and tolerated types of aggression in schools these days. And he's honest, at least about one point. He says that Islam is not just a religion, but it is a way of life. And schools must accommodate all aspects of Islam in the schools, including their daily prayer, washing, diet, and fasting. But equity audits really have nothing to do with equality. They're all about working for equal outcomes. So take, for example, this recent example here out of Sunrise Park Middle School in White Bear Lake. After doing an equity audit, they found grading disparities among students of color. So the solution was they'll no longer give out any Fs. The 0 will be raised to 50% automatically. Mm-hmm. That's a great solution. And this was done because their equity audit concluded that grading was one of the largest areas perpetuating systemic racism. By passing along failing students, and the district believes this will eliminate systemic racism. The district goes on to say they know they will be supported because of all the strategic work the district has already done through the lens of equity. This district also made national headlines in March for social emotional lesson about oppression, where the choir teachers separated the 6th graders based upon their privilege and other targeted categories. So it's just everywhere, you guys, even in choir, band. So did you catch that reference to social emotional lesson in that previous page, in the previous slide? Well, social emotional learning, I kind of call this the mothership of transformational education. Gramsci would be very proud. I mean, basically, SEL is often sold to parents in the district as a way for kids to self-moderate their emotions, but it's really a total shift away from academics to behavioral modification, coaching, and they have interventions as well, with or without parental notification. But the goal of SEL is a total adoption and acceptance of all things LGBTQ, CSE, CRT, all of these things you see under this umbrella. And they constantly survey our kids. They constantly data track them. They're constantly tracking their values, attitudes, and beliefs, because what they want to do is put them in this massive database, which they're already building, and they're looking for change. They want to change in these values and attitudes and beliefs to a proper and desired outcome. Now, we don't have time to get into this in a lot of detail because this could be an entire another presentation, what's going on with SEL, but this is everywhere. So we have just scratched the surface, believe it or not. That really is kind of the 30,000-foot view, but we have countless of examples that I could show you. There's just so many, but clearly we have a problem, right? You know, public education really is no longer an education. I think it really, again, like we said earlier, it's just full on indoctrination. As Jaco said, it's destroying our kids. So what can we do about it? You know, and I think there's a lot of things here. First of all, we have to know Christ and know the truth, right? We have to know what the truth is so we can discern what's going on. We have to understand the terrain and the issues. And that's what we're hoping to kind of do tonight. You need to embrace your duties and your roles. We need to wear our armor and use it, because we are in a spiritual battle. And we need to take action. You know, I think again, as several of the speakers or the videos have said, you know, we've blindly trusted our schools to do the right things. And I'm not saying that every teacher in every public school is some kind of evil person. They're really not. There's a lot of good teachers that are still there. But a lot of the young teachers coming in, we can maybe talk about this in the question and answer, but there's a whole crop of people coming in with this whole ideology they've been marinating in and saturated in for a long time. And this is what we're dealing with. And so this curriculum is just not alarming to them at all. A lot of the veteran teachers are very alarmed and trying to do what they can, but there's not a lot that they can do in the class. But Satan clearly, you know, he's taken a ton of ground, and he's not going to give this up without a fight. Mm-hmm. So some of the best action steps I think you could take, Christopher Rufo has probably done more than anybody I know on critical race theory. He has thousands and thousands and thousands of hours invested in this, and he looks at it on a national scope. But I would definitely get onto his website, take a look at his stuff. Our website, we have tons of information on our website, all kinds of stuff, and it's free. We have all kinds of tools for you, things you can bring to your teachers, or for your students. I mean, whatever, share with any neighbor, I mean, whatever you want to do. Because that's one thing that we really need to do is call and write our legislators about this, let them know that you are informed and you will not stand for this kind of stuff to become our curriculum. But also we need to educate others and share the information. People don't know. I mean, a lot of people just really don't know what's going on in school yet. And I have to say, I would be remiss if I didn't say it, if you have children or grands, I would consider homeschooling or a private Christian school, if you're able to do that. And you have to even be careful with the Christian schools. A lot of them have embraced some of this stuff as well. See, it's not necessarily safe because they have a Christian label on it, but you have to just do your due diligence. You have to take a look at it. Speak to your school board. I mean, people are doing it, and they're elected officials. They are accountable to us. So we should be getting in front of them and letting them know what we think, because there's a lot of good people on the school board as well. And I have to honestly say, a lot of them don't even know what's going on. They just haven't been digging into the curriculum. And in Minnesota, one right that you have is, as a parent, you have the right to audit all the curriculum that your kid sees. You can look at the websites, videos, all of it, all the books. And I would consider doing that and just take a friend in with you to do it, because there's always strength in numbers to do that. And then finally, I would say, don't hope for the schools to self-correct. I just have to be honest. I mean, when you look at the history and you look at the trend and you see where we are today, it's not going to self-correct. I mean, we're kidding ourselves that we think that's going to happen. So it is time. We have to take action. We have to really dig in. And this is a fight I think that's definitely worth getting involved in, because this deals with our kids. So in closing, then, I'm going to close with an example of, I think it was a wonderful example, these Christian parents that went into the Lakeville Public School District meeting, and they talked about CRT. So I want you to hear from them.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jim Bean III. This is my lovely wife, Keisha. And we're here today to represent the millions of Black Americans who disagree with the Black Lives Matter movement. I always ask people, have you ever been to the Black Lives Matter website? Most people say no. Let me show you 3 things that I saw on there that goes against my Christian viewpoints. And as a taxpayer, I do not want to see this agenda, this indoctrination pushed on my 4 children. What I saw was, if you go to Black Lives Matter website, it says that they support sexual perversion, which they, in their own words, we foster a queer affirming network. This is America. You can be who you want to be. You can love who you want to love. But that indoctrination, that teaching should not be forced on everyone. It also says that we disrupt the nuclear family. That's my wife. This is our 4 children. Why would you disrupt the nuclear family? In most Black communities, the father is not there. That's why we're seeing so many issues and so many problems. Why disrupt that? Another thing you'll see is that they say we engage comrades. They, in their own words, their leaders said they are trained Marxists. Trained Marxists. I'm an American. I believe in American exceptionalism. I believe America is the best country ever. Another thing I want to point out, in our neighborhood, everyone can put up their signs and it says, "We believe in this house." I want to give you what we're going to put in our neighborhood. We believe God created man and woman. Love is sacrificial. God created science. Not a few or some, but all lives matter. An unborn life is still a life. Helping the immigrant. Judging character, not skin color. Respecting the law and the flag. We're also going to put this one up. In this house, we believe biology is real. All lives matter. Crime is illegal. Jesus is life. God is love. Unborn babies are humans, right?
That's right.
Truth is everything. Lastly, I want to say this indoctrination, 30 seconds. It can get to the point where what happened in Dallas back in 2016, I'm going to read what it says here as far as the report. It says the suspect, who was a sniper, he killed 5 officers. He said here he was upset about Black lives. He said that he was upset that recent police shootings was upset about white people. He wanted to kill white, especially white officers. This is poisonous. This is toxic. We cannot allow this to continue. I know it's going on in mainstream media. I know it's in the sports, but there's millions who disagree. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
That's Lakeville.
That was Lakeville. Awesome. That was this summer. Has anybody ever seen any of these clips from our local school boards on the news? Oh, yeah. Okay, good. Because, I mean, most people have not seen this because it's pretty much censored down. They don't want people to know what parents are doing.
And they want to shut the video and sound off too.
Yes.
They don't want to record.
Oh, yeah, that is so true. You're right. They make them private. Yeah. All right. So finally, in closing, I've often been asked how I got involved in these issues. I've been involved for about 20 years. And it was about 20 years ago, I was watching a movie about Martin Luther King Jr. And on his father's desk, he had a plaque that said, "If you see a good fight, get in it." And honestly, that was like the trigger for me. It just hit me. I thought, if I don't get in this fight, who's going to? Who's going to fight for those who can't fight for themselves? So I believe it's a good fight, church. We need to get in it. And I just thank you for listening.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So I'm gonna pull this mic over here and stand up here with her.
Do you want me to stay? Okay.
You can stay
All
right
right.
here. You're our main speaker.
Okay.
And this is question and answer time. So if you have some questions that you'd like to ask her, I know one of the things that I mentioned to her prior to speaking today was, who's really pushing this stuff, and we know it's demonic, but I heard a phrase the other day, the teachers union have become pimps, that they are trying to groom our kids by pushing this stuff in the schools. Any thoughts on that?
I hope that I was able to kind of show you that progression of, when you look at the players, the Singers, the Kinseys, Sekas, I mean, their whole emphasis really is, pimp is a word maybe they wouldn't use, but it's absolutely a word that I would use. They're really grooming our kids for sexual perversion and abuse and violence and violation, because they're just removing all of their protective boundaries, all of their values, all of their guardrails, and that is not healthy for children. And we're seeing so much of this fallout. One of the stats that probably isn't in the mainstream news, but we see a lot of things that a lot of people don't see, but sexual assault by children on children has skyrocketed. Kids are attacking other children because they're seeing these things and it's triggering thoughts that should not be there, or, they get online and they see something, they see porn, they see whatever, and a lot of bad stuff is happening to children as well, from other children.
Questions? Yes.
As to what you just said, there's an article in the paper about one of the high schools actually pulling the football season away from that high school. And it was because 3 of the players pinned one of the boys down and they sodomized him in the locker room. And that just happened here. This is in Minnesota.
Wow. I had not heard that.
I have not heard that either. Do you know what school it was? Do you remember which high school?
I think it was Polaris, or
I think it was Proctor.
Oh, Proctor. Okay. Jeez.
And they put it online, that's how they found out about it.
It's just unbelievable.
So that just,
No
earmarks what you're
conscience.
just saying.
Right, there's just no conscience. I mean, they're advertising it. Yeah, I know. It's just these kids are getting hardened at really young ages.
Pastor Zinga, the pastor from this church here, preached Sunday about having anger but don't sin. And while he was saying that, I was thinking to myself, as a person of Christ, we need to take a stand, Ephesians 6 says, and be ready to stop whatever it is. My sinning would be if I started to go after them and hit them myself. And so all to say is her progression was really good. As I looked at it, I wish I could put it back up real quick, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because it said be informed and be prepared. Not just go to the final event and try to go, and stand. If you're not prepared yourself, if you're not doing it in the spirit of things, with love, because you love them. Those I was talking earlier about some